and welcome to my presentation Scrum for Dummies. Scrum, it's also called Agile Project Management or Agile Project Work. What is it? What does it do? And let's have a look at 3 different cases: a product development case, a book case, and finally, believe it or not, the Volkswagen Beetle as a Scrum project. What's special about Scrum in projects? Is it something new? Or is it just the emperor's new clothes? Some people say it has nothing to do with project work at all. And there is some truth in that. Because in classical project work, we have a typical triple constraint: deliverable, time and cost. And typically the project manager is responsible for delivering one deliverable at a certain time and of course to a certain cost to a receiver. And this receiver takes care of the deliverable and sees to that it creates value into eternity, or at least as long as possible. In Scrum we have several deliverables, and I put them into this box here, which actually represents what's called the backlog. And this is my symbol or metaphor of deliverable in Scrum. And they all look alike, these balls in the box here, because they're modular. Well, at least they have a modular, well-defined interface. And that's why the sequencing of them is not so important. So we will, in a Scrum project, deliver small deliverables constantly, and they will create value throughout the project while the project is ongoing. Example 1, product development. Let's say you're a mobile phone manufacturer and you want to have this new model that you're planning ready for production, let's say a year from now. You start a project group, come together, specify all the functionality of the phone, and the project group works continuously until the product is ready for stable production. An important project member from the beginning of the project is a configuration manager coming from the configuration department, because this guy is somebody who's a specialist in how to specify. And the configuration manager also has a responsibility after the project is finished, that is, when the product is into stable production, because there will be a lot of small changes and modifications, both when it comes to hardware, software and mechanics into this project. So the configuration manager will keep track of that, and he has the eternal responsibility for the project until it is absolutely back from the market. If we do this using Scrum, we think a little bit differently, because then the project group gets together, finds out what's going to be the complete functionality, and each function will be a deliverable. And maybe they think, okay, let's launch a quick model on the market, see how it goes. So we pick, let's say, this one and this one and this one as basic functionality of the simple model that we put on the market. Let's say we have 5 here. And after a certain time, we realize that, okay, we manage this one, we manage this one, this one, this one. This one, though, we didn't really complete. So we'll put it back into the backlog and we'll complete it maybe for the next release. Project group lives with the product as long as it is on the market. And in these days, that may not be a very long time at all. One basic difference between classical project work, that we don't have the relay race anymore. Now the drawback is that the world is not as simple as it used to be, when a project manager could say done and that's it. But on the other hand, the lifetime of the product and the project is entangled because the lifetime in the market is rather short anyway. So we could think about the product in the market being a project. Let's take a look at a book project. Let's say you want to make a book, and that's a risky, long-term, tedious project. And it may take years until the book is on the market, creating value for you and others. So if you forget about the traditional book concept and you think in terms of Scrum, well, then you start with a binder, a collecting binder. This one. This is the infrastructure for the product on the market. So you sell the binder and there will be theme magazines coming every month. So this is the first theme magazine that you can put on the market after 1 month. The customer buys it, goes into the binder. Next month you come up with a second one, and that's also available on the market. Consumer buys it, put it into the binder. Okay, and that's it, creating value. Third month, well, you realize that you should be flexible, and we have some reactions to the market. We should change the format, the concept a little bit. The themes should be a little bit different. So the third theme magazine looks like that. You put it in the market, goes into the binder. After 12 months, after 24 months, you have completed the project. The binder with all the 24 magazines are on the market. Not exactly equivalent or equal to the planned book, but perhaps better because you have maneuvered and changed the concept on the way, and you have created value for yourself and the rest of the world throughout the project. I have a '59 Volkswagen Beetle, and I read a lot of stuff about the Volkswagen, and all of a sudden, while reading this book, I realized that the original designer of the Volkswagen, Ferdinand Porsche, who actually was doing much of the improvements and designed his construction bureau in the 50s, in the early 50s, had fleet backlog of all future improvements to the car already written. You find it in this book, a long list describing the backlog. Well, that was possible in the Volkswagen Beetle because it's a modular concept. A part for a '69 can fit into a '53 and vice versa. They had sprints taking a year, and each sprint ended in August with a new model on the market. And let's say that they planned for the '64 model on the market, and they said that, okay, let's pick this one, and this one, take it into the '64 and get it out to the backlog. And then this one, well, we could do this one, but let's leave that to the '68. So we'll put that into the backlog, into the Volkswagen backlog. And that's possible because it's a modular design. Of course, they didn't think in terms of Scrum at that time, and they certainly didn't think in terms of the Volkswagen Beetle being a Scrum project, but it's an example of how Scrum can be used in continuous improvement of a product throughout its life cycle. So it's a mega Kaizen, you could also call Scrum. And the Volkswagen Beetle was a mega Scrum. Teams in Scrum is very important. Nothing new in that, should be also in regular projects. But there are 3 different team roles, and that's the product owner, that's equivalent to the project owner in normal projects, having the business responsibility. It's a Scrum Master, which is equivalent more or less to the project manager, and it's a team member, of course equivalent to a project member. Nothing new in that. So this is a little bit the emperor's new clothes. But it's being emphasized heavily in Scrum the importance of having empowered teams, self-going teams, which should also be the case in normal projects. But in a lot of hierarchical organizations, that sometimes won't work because the top management is very afraid of letting go. So in Scrum, often the team is a little bit surprised to find that they are being left alone and they are empowered to do the things. And of course, that's a big motivation. And they also, of course, have the value creation of the project in their minds, and it's their responsibility at quite another degree than what it is in the classical project. As a matter of fact, there are three important things that really makes Scrum project different from a classical project work. And that is, one, value creation throughout the project. So the values are created as the project is living, and that can be done because the life cycle is so limited in a lot of projects these days. The second is modularity, because the modularity takes away the stress of all the sequencing that you have in a normal project. Like if you're building a house, you have to make sure that plumbing, electricity, wall painting, carpeting, etc. comes in a certain sequence. Well, not so if it had been 100% modular. So modularity in Scrum takes away the need for sequencing. And the third thing then is the independent teams. Well, so can we use Scrum in any kind of project? I don't think so. It would be hopeless to think in terms of building a bridge using Scrum. It would be hopeless construction building in terms of Scrum. Now we really can use Scrum in those projects where flexibility and finding our way throughout the project is very important. And it's a little bit cumbersome if you build a bridge or a road and you have to find your way throughout the project. So you can't do that in the traditional, classical, very concrete project. But in projects that are more open, you can do it and you can benefit from it. Because you can let the teams loose and you can create value throughout the project, and that's very inspiring. So hopefully this gave you a little bit different overview of what a Scrum project actually is and what it can do.